All right, so welcome to what is probably one of the more historic weeks in Washington, D.C. We had a couple of major things happened this week, and we're going to recap that. We had the historic win in Georgia where the Democrat won, and Senator Warnock, congratulations. He won. He won the runoff with against Herschel Walker and became 51 Democrats in the Senate, gaining control of the Senate by a one senator majority over Herschel Walker. Herschel Walker conceded. Senator Warnock won, and congratulations to the senator. Now, right on the heels of that, we have this the Senator Sinema from Arizona making a huge announcement that may shake how the Democrats will rule in the Senate. I'm going to cover just how important that announcement is. But first, I want to play the full interview or a good part of her interview that she had with CNN. We're going to come back and then we're going to discuss how that may affect the senators moving forward, how they're going to control the Senate. Let's get right to it.
When you look at your voting record and the issues that are important to you as spelled out on your website, most of them are traditional Democratic issues, capital D, expanding healthcare access, abortion rights, LGBTQ rights, path for dreamers, and on, environmentalism, green energy. That sounds like a Democrat to me, no?
Well, I know this is really hard for lots of folks, especially in DC. But what's important to me is to not be tethered by the partisanship that dominates politics today. And I think Americans are tired of it. I think Arizonans are tired of it. What I'm interested in is working on all those issues that you just mentioned that I care deeply about and that I believe my constituents care deeply about. But I want to work on them in a way that is productive, that is free from the trappings of the pull of the political system. You know, the national political parties have pulled our politics farther to the edges than I've ever seen. I want to remove some of that poison from our politics. I want to get back to actually just working on the issues, working together to try and solve these challenges.
And one of the big complaints I hear from conservatives, from Republicans, is Democrats just don't take border security seriously. They just don't. Do you agree with that sentiment? And do you think there is an actual path forward there? Democrats are still going to have the majority in the next Senate. You can still get this on the floor of the Senate if you want.
Well, as a native Arizonan who was born and raised near the southern border, I can tell you unequivocally that the federal government has failed its duty in the last 40 years.
Not just Democrats.
It's just everyone. The federal government has failed here. And places like Arizona, front lines of this crisis, have been paying the price every single day since then. So for us, this isn't just a talking point of Team A versus Team B. This is our life every day. The reality is that when folks say, you know, we've got to just provide a legal path to citizenship for dreamers, which I support wholeheartedly. These kids are Americans in all but name. So when folks say we've got to do that, I agree. And when folks say we've got to secure the border, of course I agree. You know, my state is suffering from the failure to do so for 40 years. So this is a perfect example of why I'm so frustrated with partisanship that has gripped our nation, and the parties are pulling folks away. It's not either or, it's and. Both of those concerns are real and valid. And we as a government have a duty to solve both of those concerns.
You're up for re-election in 2024. This move means, I suppose, that you're not going to be running in the Democratic primary for the Senate seat?
Well, I know this will probably be disappointing to folks, but I'm actually not even thinking about electoral politics or talking about that at all right now.
But doesn't this increase the likelihood that your run for re-election will be tougher because you will not only have a Republican opponent, you may even have a Democratic opponent?
You know, I don't make decisions based on what the easy road or the tough road is. I have always tried to make decisions based on what I think is right. And for me, it's very important that we have a discussion at home in Arizona and here in the nation's capital about reducing the partisanship and just focus on solving the challenges that we face in America. The challenges we face are great. They're significant. We cannot solve them by using partisan attacks. We cannot solve them through a partisan lens. And I want to be a part of having that discussion and showing that there is a different way.
Would you ever run for president?
No,
Never.
I don't want to be president.
There are two independents who already caucus with the Democrats, Bernie Sanders of Vermont and Angus King of Maine. Lisa Murkowski, who's a Republican but ran in a previous election as an independent, is also somebody whose independence is noted. Are those three models at all for what you're doing? Are there other independents? Teddy Roosevelt in the Bull Moose Party. Is there anyone you look to as a guide, as a mentor, as a role model when it comes to what you're doing?
Jake, it probably won't surprise you when I tell you I'm not trying to be like anyone else. What I'm trying to do is be true to my values and the values of my state. So, I think everyone should make their own decisions about where they fit or where they don't fit. I'm going to keep doing exactly what I do, which is just stay focused on the work, and ignore all the noise.
Here with me now is somebody who knows a thing or two about going his own way, Independent Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont. Senator, first, you are an independent. She is now the third.
All right. So we're going to, Senator Bernie Sanders is one of the first few senators that came up with a honest reaction to what the Senator Sinema stated. I'm going to play his reaction to her statement, and I want you to listen in on that. Listen in closely on what he says, and then I'm going to play some other senators' reaction. And let's see if we can glean from those reactions how they really feel about the conversion.
Official independent of the U.S. Senate, joining you and Angus King of Maine. What do you think of her decision and also what you just heard in her interview with Jake?
I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on Senator Sinema. She has her reasons. Dana, I happen to suspect that it's probably a lot to do with politics back in Arizona. I think the Democrats there are not all that enthusiastic about somebody who helped sabotage some of the most important legislation that protects the interests of working families and voting rights and so forth. So I think it really has to do with her political aspirations for the future in Arizona. But
all right, so that's the key. That is the key. As I mentioned to you guys earlier in this show and on this stream, there were a couple of major legislations that the Democrats in the Senate put forth. Now, this was early on in the year. This was when we were talking about the Build Back Better bill, some other major legislations that, for the most part, she and the other senator mentioned that they were instrumental in killing that particular bill. Now, that was when the Senate was equally distributed, 50 Republicans to 50 Democrats. And then, of course, the vice president, she cast the deciding vote. But a lot of the committees couldn't move forward. A lot of bills that were stuck in there, some subpoena power, some other technical issues could not have been solved or could not have been brought forth because they couldn't get the senators, all of the Democrats on board. So that's what Bernie Sanders is talking about. I want to make sure that you understand this particular part because that is very important. That's basically key. That is basically key. So let's continue on and let's see what we have here.
for us, I think nothing much has changed in terms of the functioning of the U.S. Senate. The good news is that we now have 51 votes. We'll have a majority on committees. It means that we can go forward and start protecting the interests of working families and deal with the reality that we are increasingly living in an oligarchy where the billionaire class and large corporations control almost every aspect of our country. So I would hope very much that with this new majority, Democrats will sit down and start fighting for the needs of ordinary Americans.
So I want to talk about some of those issues in a second. But first, you were a very important figure on the campaign trail for progressives ahead of the midterms, as you normally are. I'm sure you're going to be campaigning for candidates in 2024. The outgoing Arizona Democratic Party official, one of them says that he expects Democrats will run their own candidate against her. Is that a good idea? Would you support a Democratic opponent against Senator Sinema?
I support progressive candidates all over this country, people who have the guts to take on powerful special interests. I don't know what's going to be happening in Arizona. We'll see who they nominate, but certainly that's something I will take a hard look at.
Does she have the guts to take on powerful special interests?
No, she doesn't. She is a corporate Democrat who has, in fact, along with Senator Manchin, sabotaged enormously important legislation.
I want to talk about a major deadline.
Senator Manchin was one of the more prominent Democrats that go out front and say that he was not going to support some of the major legislation that was in the Senate. So most people, if you're kind of plugged into what's going on in the Senate, you hear that name. But Bernie Sanders is on point with saying that this other senator was one of the senators that they had to deal with. Senator Sinema, her name was not in the headlines as much as Senator Manchin's name was, but in the background, according to his report here, that she was a force to be dealt with also. So let's continue on.
Deadline to fund the government, and that is Friday. There's still no deal. Would you support another short-term extension instead of a larger bill to fund the government? And how worried are you about the government shutting down?
Short-term extensions are just a temporary solution to the ongoing crisis we face. Clearly, what I worry about is Republican efforts to hold hostage next year, if we don't get an omnibus bill passed, to hold hostage the government in order to cut Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, and that I will vigorously oppose. You got a lot of seniors out there who are not making it on Social Security today. A lot of working people who are approaching retirement, who have nothing in the bank. I don't want to see Social Security or Medicare cut. I will oppose that vigorously.
While I have you, you've been in Congress a long time, the House before the Senate. There certainly have been some notable bipartisan pieces of legislation that have passed and been signed into law, but arguably funding the government is up there, maybe even the top responsibility of you and your fellow members of Congress. Why does this keep happening?
Well, I think it's happening right now because Republicans see it as an opportunity to hold us hostage and get demands that under normal circumstances they would not. Look, they have not been shy about making it clear. They want to cut Social Security, they want to cut Medicare, they want to cut Medicaid. And what they're saying is, hey, we are prepared to allow the United States government to default on our payments, bring the entire world perhaps into an economic crisis, Senator, unless you give us what you want.
I hear what you're saying about the differences right now, but over the past many years, Democrats and Republicans in charge, funding the government has just not happened, and we've been at this crisis point at the end of the year so many times. But I want to move on to a couple more issues that I know that you care about. One is the record-breaking $858 billion defense funding bill. The House passed that this week. The Senate is going to vote on it. You voted against the NDAA, the defense bill, last time around. Will you do so again?
Yes, I think I will. Look, we have 85 million Americans who have no health insurance. We have 600,000 people who are homeless. We have a dysfunctional healthcare system, dysfunctional childcare system where working parents are paying $15,000 a year on average for childcare. We have got to start protecting the needs of working families. The Pentagon is the one major agency of government which has never been independently audited. There is massive waste and fraud and cost overruns within that agency. So I think we can have the strong defense that we need without spending the huge amount of money that we're currently spending on the military.
All
And
right,
with
so
our round
let's get back into this and talk about some of the points that Bernie Sanders made. One of the things that he mentioned, and it's very important, that the two senators, Manchin and Sinema, were instrumental in killing a lot of the major reforms, major bills that the Senate wanted to put forth. And it was pretty heartbreaking. Every time the Democrats gain control or power of the Senate, the House, and the presidencies, there's always one senator that comes forth, Joe Manchin's of the world, that comes forth and kill an initiative. So it's everyone says that there should be a shared distribution of power in the government, and you get things done better, or you have better ideas put forth, and the legislation is much better, and all of that. But in reality, that's not the case, guys. That is not the case. You get some ideas put forth by one party or the other. Typically, it's the Democratic Party that puts forth a sweeping legislation, and then the other party, the Republican Party, is part of the let's work together coalition. Let's build a coalition. Let's build a bipartisan coalition, and they water down that bill to where it's unrecognizable in some cases. It's so watered down that the liberal faction of the party won't agree to it, or is not what they wanted. And then the other party, when they're in power, they're ramming stuff through on a non-bipartisan level, on a party line level. So it's kind of disheartening every time that the Democrats are in a position to do some sweeping legislation, that something happens. I'm going to add this comment to the stream, and we're going to see some of the other reactions that people in the Senate are reacting to her switching to an independent, and let's see what they have to say. All right. So here's what we have, guys, is that we have this the senator being part of the hold on a second. Let me turn this down. We have a senator that was never really a full most of her fellow Democrats were saying that she was not part of the Democratic Party. She never really caucused with the Democrats. She was always kind of this independent person that they had to deal with. Now, that's okay. That is okay. There's not a problem with that. Here's the problem, though, is that when that person is now, along with Senator Manchin, holding up a lot of the legislation or that is being put forth, and having a transactional type of basis with that, with their own party or the party that they caucus with. The couple of legislations that I want to discuss immediately was the Build Back Better bill. That was major legislation that was watered down, and it was a lot of items in that legislation that never really saw light. Some of it was child credit, uh, pre-care, daycare stuff, some taxation relations things, some jobs. It was part of a jobs bill. So there was a lot of legislation in there that a lot of Democrats and people that are starting their business would have needed to help them grow their business. And that legislation was basically gutted out of that bill. It was killed by, again, senators that wanted to exert their will over their own party. And that's a shame. That really is a shame. Now they're not in that position anymore. The starting January, the Republicans will have control of the House. Slim control. I think that the last we checked, they were at 22 Republicans versus the Democrats. Of course, is less, and you need 218 to have control of the House. So they don't have that ruling majority that a lot of people, a lot of in the excuse me, a lot of Republicans was thinking that they would have, because they thought it was going to be a red wave coming through. So they don't have that majority that they thought, but they do have they will be in charge of the House. So you have the Republicans in charge of the House, you have the Democrats in charge of the Senate, 51-49. Again, you have these two senators that you have to negotiate with on some bills, and then you have the president, the vice president that could you cast a deciding vote if necessary. These are That is what's changed, guys. Now, no matter what senator comes up and says, "Oh, nothing's changed," she's going to caucus with the Democrats, or she's going to be a reliable vote for the Democrats. The fact is that she has made a conscious choice to become an independent. She went down to the registrar's office. She filled out the paperwork, and now she has become an independent. And congratulations for her. If that's what she wanted to do, congratulations for her. She said that the reason why she did that is so that she's not beholden to any party, one party or the other. She doesn't want to be forced to the extremes. She wants to be in the middle. We have a lot of Democrats that they're saying, "Oh, okay, if that's what you want to do and we can count on you, then that's great." Look at her record. She votes with President Biden 93% of the time. But you know what, guys? I'm a huge Batman fan. And there was one comic book, Batman was, he broke his back. And he was saying that, "I broke my back. I'm going to try to get back into my groove." His back got healed, and he was practicing. And then what happened is that he threw a knife up in the tree, and some acorns was falling down. and he did a backflip, and he did one of his Batman things. And by the way, guys, I'm a huge Batman fan. Huge Batman fan. So he did one of his Batman things, and then he flipped around and he caught 9 out of 10 acorns with his finger. Say, wow, 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 wow. Caught 9 out of 10 acorns. But that one acorn he missed. That 10th one. You know what he said? It's always the last one that kills you. So it's not that she voted 93% of the time with the president or with the Democratic Party. It's that last one, the one that they really needed her to vote on. That may be the one that gets you. So, Senator, if it is your plan to be centralist, if it is your plan to work on these major reforms, this major legislation, then I hope that you do that. But if it's your plan to be that last acorn, the one that gets you, we're going to put you to the test. Stay grinding.